My name is Emma, and I want to tell you about the day that changed my life forever. I was 18, full of curiosity, a little reckless, and my parents had decided that a weekend hike in the mountains would be a perfect way to spend time together. My younger brother, Alex, of course, was over the moon about the idea, bouncing with excitement as we prepared. That morning, the air was crisp and fragrant with pine and damp earth. Mist curled around the valleys like delicate fingers of smoke, and the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, scattering across the forest floor in patches of gold. The world felt vast and alive, and I remember feeling a thrill of freedom coursing through me, mingled with a strange, nervous anticipation. Alex ran ahead, his small legs surprisingly fast, calling back, "Emma, hurry up! You're slow! The mountains won't wait for you!" I laughed, jogging to catch up, while my mother fussed with our jackets, checking layers, and my father examined the trail map one last time, ensuring we had enough water, snacks, and emergency gear. We followed a narrow trail winding through the dense forest. I could hear the crunch of leaves beneath our feet, the gentle gurgle of a stream, and the distant rustling of wildlife. Every detail captivated me. The rough texture of tree bark beneath my fingers, the faint smell of moss and wet rocks, the tiny wildflowers peeking through the undergrowth. For the first hour, the hike was idyllic. Alex darted back and forth, picking up sticks, oddly shaped stones, and interesting leaves, proudly showing off his finds. My parents walked together, chatting quietly, smiles on their faces as they admired the scenery. I, however, lagged slightly behind, drawn to a cluster of unusual wildflowers that grew near the trail's edge. I crouched down to examine them, marveling at the vibrant purples and yellows. "Just a quick look," I whispered to myself. "I'll be right back." I reached for my phone to take a picture, and in that moment, I realized I had wandered further than I thought. The trail had vanished from view. Every tree looked the same. Every rock seemed to repeat itself endlessly. My heart started to pound. "Mom? Dad? Alex?" I called, voice trembling, but the forest swallowed my words. I spun around, desperate, panic creeping in. I was completely alone. And then I heard it, a soft rustle. At first, I thought it was Alex, but the sound grew heavier, more deliberate. My stomach twisted as a pack of wolves emerged from the shadows. My mind screamed, "They're going to attack me. I'm done for." But they didn't. They stopped a few meters away, their fur blending seamlessly with the trees, eyes bright and alert. One wolf, larger than the rest, with silver-gray fur that seemed to glow in the dim light, stepped forward. Its gaze met mine, calm but intense. My legs shook, and I wanted to run, but something in its eyes froze me in place. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't threatening, it was protective, almost as if it understood that I was lost, almost as if it wanted me to follow. I swallowed hard. I need to get back to my family," I whispered, voice trembling. I took a cautious step toward the wolf. It paused, then turned slightly, beckoning me to follow. My throat went dry. I glanced back, hoping to see a sign of the trail or my family, but there was nothing, only endless trees and mist curling around the forest floor. I had no choice. I began to follow. Step by tentative step, I moved deeper into the forest. Every crack of a branch, every rustle in the underbrush made my heart leap, but the wolves never faltered. Their calm presence gave me courage. As we moved, I started talking to them. "I'm Emma. I'm lost. Please help me." I laughed softly at my own words, but it felt necessary. The silver wolf glanced back at me, eyes steady. I imagined it nodding. "We'll get you there." The forest seemed alive in ways I had never noticed. Birds darted between branches, squirrels scurried along roots, and the wind whispered secrets through the trees. Every sound made my heart race, yet also filled me with awe. I realized the forest was not just a place of danger, it was a living, breathing world, full of life, mystery, and lessons I had yet to learn. By late morning, we reached a small creek. The water was clear, rushing over smooth rocks, cold enough to make my hands sting. I hesitated. Crossing it seemed impossible. The silver wolf stepped first, testing the stones with careful precision. I studied its movements, taking a deep breath, and began to cross. Halfway through, my foot slipped on a moss-covered rock, sending a shock of cold up my leg. A wolf pressed close, nudging me gently, and I found my footing again. Relief surged through me, and I whispered, "Thank you." Hours passed. We climbed over fallen trees, navigated around jagged rocks, and moved slowly through dense undergrowth. Every step was deliberate, every decision mattered. I fell behind often, exhausted and terrified, but the wolves waited patiently, encouraging me forward with their calm presence. Night began to fall. Shadows stretched long across the forest floor, and the wind picked up, rustling the leaves in eerie whispers. I knew I had to find shelter. Using fallen branches and a patch of dry leaves, I made a small bed in a protected corner of the forest. The wolves circled around me, protective, silent, and watchful. As I lay down, shivering from cold and fear, I realized the truth. I was no longer just a girl who had wandered off a trail. I was someone lost in the mountains, guided by creatures I had once feared. And somehow, I felt safe. The mountains, the forest, and the wolves had only just begun to test me. But for the first time, I understood that this journey would teach me more than survival. It would teach me courage, trust, and the extraordinary bond between humans and the wild. And that, I knew, was only the beginning. The night was long, and I barely slept. Every sound of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the distant howl of some unseen animal made me startle. I lay curled up on my small bed of leaves, shivering and listening to the rhythmic breathing of the wolves circling around me. Their presence, once terrifying, had become a source of comfort. Somehow, these wild animals had become my protectors, my guides, my silent companions. When dawn broke, pale and soft through the dense canopy, I pushed myself to my feet. My legs were stiff, my muscles sore, and my fingers ached from gripping roots and rocks the day before. I could still feel the lingering fear in my chest, but there was also a spark of determination. I had survived the first night. I could survive another day. The silver wolf was already waiting at the edge of our clearing, its gaze scanning the forest with precision. Its eyes met mine, calm and steady. I took a deep breath, adjusted my backpack, and began to follow. Each step required focus. The ground was uneven, strewn with roots, fallen branches, and slippery rocks. The wolves moved with ease, leaping gracefully over obstacles, their movements fluid and deliberate. I struggled to keep pace, falling behind often, but the wolves waited, occasionally pressing close to remind me they were there. The forest grew darker and denser as we moved. Towering pine and fir trees blocked much of the sunlight, casting long shadows that twisted across the mossy ground. Small animals scurried through the underbrush, squirrels, rabbits, and even a startled deer that bolted away as we approached. Birds of colors I had never seen before flitted from branch to branch, calling to one another in sharp melodic notes. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and every breath filled me with a strange mix of fear and awe. By mid-morning, I reached a small stream, its water rushing swiftly over smooth stones. The wolves paused at the edge, sniffing the air and testing the stones. I stared at the icy water, fear gripping me. Crossing it seemed impossible, but the silver wolf, as always, moved first, hopping carefully from stone to stone. I mimicked its steps, trembling, every muscle in my body tense. Halfway across, my foot slipped on a moss-covered rock, and a surge of cold water splashed up my leg. My heart raced, but a wolf pressed against me, steadying me with its warm body. I made it to the other side, shivering and exhausted, whispering, "Thank you." The next several hours were grueling. The forest floor became more treacherous, with jagged rocks and twisted roots threatening to trip me at every step. I stumbled repeatedly, scraping my hands and knees, but the wolves were patient, waiting each time and gently nudging me forward. My stomach growled, but there was no time to rest. Hunger was a dull companion compared to the fear of losing my way entirely. By afternoon, the trail became steep, the forest giving way to rocky outcrops and narrow ridges. The wind picked up, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. The wolves moved with remarkable precision, testing every foothold before I stepped. My heart pounded with each precarious step. I slipped once, sliding several feet down a slope, but the silver wolf pressed close, guiding me back to a safer position. I realized then that I was no longer simply following them, I was learning from them. They were teaching me how to move through the forest, how to anticipate danger, and how to survive. As the sun began to dip lower, the forest transformed. Shadows deepened and the forest sounds changed. Owls hooted from hidden perches, insects buzzed loudly, and the wind whispered through the trees like a living creature. I could feel my exhaustion weighing me down, but the wolves stayed close, circling around me protectively. I found a small clearing beneath a large overhanging rock, and with leaves and moss I made another makeshift bed. That night, the forest felt alive in a way I had never noticed before. I lay awake, shivering from cold and exhaustion, reflecting on everything that had happened. The cliffs I had crossed, the streams I had forded, the countless obstacles I had faced, and through it all, the wolves had never left me. I realized I had come to trust them completely, relying on them in ways I never imagined. I began to speak softly, almost in a whisper, as if sharing my thoughts with them. "I don't know what I'd do without you. I don't know if I'd make it. I hope they find me soon." The silver wolf glanced at me, eyes calm and attentive, and I felt a strange reassurance. Somehow, it understood. Sleep eventually came in short bursts, and I dreamt of the forest in strange, vivid ways. I dreamt of running alongside the wolves, leaping over cliffs, crossing rivers, and moving through a world that was both terrifying and beautiful. I dreamt of my family calling my name, and I woke each time with a renewed determination to keep moving. By morning, my body ached, but I had a new resolve. The mountains would test me further, with steeper cliffs, denser forest, and more dangerous terrain ahead. But I knew one thing: I was no longer a helpless girl lost in the wilderness. I was someone who had faced fear and survived, guided by creatures I had once feared. And with that thought, I stepped forward, following the silver wolf into the depths of the forest, unaware of the challenges still waiting for me. The morning air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine. My body ached from the previous days of climbing, slipping, and trudging through dense forest, but I forced myself up. The wolves were already waiting, their eyes scanning the forest with that calm, intelligent focus that had become my lifeline. I swallowed hard and adjusted my backpack. My muscles burned as I took each step, but I reminded myself of why I was moving. My family, my parents and Alex, were out there, searching, hoping, praying for me. Every step I took was for them, and for the strange, unspoken bond I had formed with the wolves. The forest grew denser as we climbed higher. Ancient trees towered above, their roots twisting across the mossy ground like giant serpents. The wind began to pick up, rustling the treetops and sending a chill down my spine. I could hear the distant rumble of thunder, and dark clouds slowly gathered overhead. We came to a steep incline, loose gravel underfoot threatening to send me tumbling down the mountainside. My hands grasped the rough bark of trees, fingers slipping on wet moss. Each careful step felt like a gamble. I slipped twice, scraping my palms and knees, and each time the silver wolf pressed close, nudging me, guiding me back to safer footing. The pack moved with almost supernatural grace, leaping over obstacles effortlessly, testing every rock and root before I followed. I realized I was no longer just following them blindly, I was learning. Their movements taught me how to read the forest, how to anticipate danger, and how to navigate treacherous terrain. By late morning, the first drops of rain began to fall. The clouds darkened, and the wind howled through the trees. The forest became slippery and treacherous. I struggled, my wet clothes clinging to me, making every movement more exhausting. My stomach growled, my legs ached, and my lungs burned with every step. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept across the ridge. I froze, terrified, clinging to a tree for balance. My foot slipped on the wet rocks, and I slid several feet toward the edge. Panic gripped me, and I screamed. A wolf pressed against my back, steadying me, and I felt its warmth and calm. Slowly, shakily, I regained my footing. Tears mixed with rain on my face as I whispered, "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." The storm intensified. Rain fell in sheets, turning the forest floor into a slippery, muddy obstacle course. Streams swelled, rocks became slick, and the wind tore through the trees, sending branches crashing down. I had to concentrate on every step, every handhold, every breath. One wrong move could mean disaster. We came to a raging river, swollen from the rain. The water roared as it tumbled over jagged rocks, icy and merciless. My stomach churned at the sight. How could I cross this? I studied the stones, soaked with rain and moss-covered, each step a gamble. The silver wolf stepped first, testing each stone with precision and confidence. I followed, hands gripping the slippery rocks, heart pounding, breath ragged. Halfway across, my foot slipped, and icy water surged up my leg. I gasped, my heart racing, and a wolf pressed against me, steadying me with its warm body until I reached the other side. Relief and gratitude washed over me as I whispered, "Thank you." By afternoon, the storm eased slightly, but the forest was drenched and heavy with the scent of wet pine and earth. We climbed higher into the mountains, navigating narrow paths along sheer cliffs. Each step demanded focus. A single misstep could mean plummeting into the jagged rocks below. My muscles trembled, exhaustion pressing down like a heavy weight, but the wolves moved calmly, guiding me, waiting patiently whenever I faltered. As evening approached, the storm returned, accompanied by thunder and lightning that flashed across the darkened forest. The path became nearly invisible in the dim light, and I had to rely on the wolves' guidance more than ever. They pressed close, circling around me protectively as I stumbled and slid, nudging me back to safe footing whenever danger threatened. Night fell, and the forest seemed alive with sound and movement. I found a small clearing beneath a rocky overhang and gathered leaves and moss to create a bed. The wolves curled around me, alert and protective. Exhaustion finally overcame me, and I drifted into a fitful sleep, dreaming of the forest and the cliffs, the raging rivers, and the wolves' glowing eyes watching over me. Even in sleep, I felt their presence. I realized I was learning more than survival. I was learning courage, patience, and trust. I was learning that strength was not just physical, but mental and emotional. I was discovering that help could come in the most unexpected forms, and that even in the wildest, most dangerous places, guidance and protection could exist. By dawn, my body ached more than ever, but my resolve had deepened. The forest had tested me, but I had survived storms, cliffs, rivers, and exhaustion. The wolves had been my guardians, my teachers, and my companions, and I knew the most dangerous, most challenging part of this journey still awaited: the final ridge, the narrowest paths, and the first glimpse of human life. But for the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. I was stronger than I thought, braver than I imagined, and I had the wolves by my side. Step by careful step, I rose and followed them into the depths of the forest once more, ready for the trials ahead. The morning air was crisp and sharp, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and pine from the previous night's storm. My body was sore in ways I hadn't thought possible, muscles aching, hands raw, legs trembling, but I had no choice but to keep moving. The forest was dense, the path treacherous, but I could feel something different today. I was close to finding a way back, close to safety, close to my family. The silver wolf, ever vigilant, waited at the edge of the clearing. Its eyes glowed with calm intelligence, scanning the forest ahead. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. The ridge we were about to cross was narrow and sheer, cliffs plunging into jagged rocks below. One misstep could end everything. Step by tentative step, I followed the wolves. My shoes slipped on the slick stones, my hands gripping roots and rocks, searching desperately for balance. Several times I almost tumbled, but the wolves pressed close, nudging me gently, grounding me. I whispered, "Thank you, I trust you," and for some reason the words felt enough. The wind picked up, whipping around me like a living thing. Rain from earlier had left the rocks slick and dangerous. Every step required absolute focus. I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my heart pounding in my ears. My legs trembled from exhaustion, but I couldn't stop. I had come too far to fail now. Halfway along the ridge, a sudden gust of wind nearly threw me off balance. I froze, clinging to a jagged rock, teeth gritted, heart hammering. The silver wolf pressed against me, reassuring, protective. Slowly, I inched forward, step by step, each movement painstaking. Every slip sent shivers down my spine, but with the wolves' guidance, I made it to the safer side. The path became even steeper, jagged rocks jutting from the ground like teeth. I could hear distant water, perhaps a river far below. My muscles screamed, my lungs burned, but I kept moving. The wolves seemed tireless, circling me, watching for danger, guiding every step. I realized then that they were not just my guides, they were my guardians, watching over me with unwavering attention. By late morning, I saw it, a distant plume of smoke rising above the forest. My heart leapt. Civilization, human life. Hope surged through me, giving me strength I didn't know I had. But the final stretch was not easy. Narrow paths along cliffs, slippery rocks, and tangled roots tested every ounce of my courage. As I navigated the last ridge, exhaustion nearly overtook me. My vision blurred, muscles trembling uncontrollably. One slip, one miscalculated step, and I could fall into the abyss below. I froze, tears streaming down my face from fear and fatigue. The wolves pressed close, nudging me forward, patient and protective. Their presence gave me strength beyond reason. I took a deep breath, focused on one step at a time, and slowly, painstakingly made it to the end of the ridge. Then, through the trees, I heard it. Voices. My name. "Emma! Emma!" My heart exploded with relief. Tears filled my eyes. I stumbled forward, ignoring the pain in my legs and the exhaustion in my body. Through the mist and trees, I saw them. My parents running toward me, calling my name, faces etched with fear and relief. I ran into their arms, sobbing uncontrollably. My mother held me tightly, shaking with emotion. "My baby, we thought we lost you," she cried. Alex jumped up and down, nearly knocking me over, shouting, "Emma, you're okay, you're alive." My father checked me quickly, scanning my scrapes, bruises, and mud-streaked clothes, but his relief was overwhelming. Through sobs, I explained, I'm okay, but the wolves, they saved me. They guided me through the forest. They protected me." My parents looked at me, astonished, disbelief written on their faces. "Wolves?" my father asked, incredulous. "Are you serious?" I nodded. Yes, they stayed with me the whole time, leading me safely through rivers, cliffs, and the forest. I wouldn't be here without them. I glanced back at the forest's edge, but the wolves were gone, vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared. Only the faint scent of pine lingered. I whispered into the forest, "Thank you. I'll never forget you." The reunion was overwhelming. My family held me close, relieved beyond words. Alex kept asking questions. My parents checked me repeatedly, but through it all, I realized something profound. This journey had changed me. I had faced fear, exhaustion, and near-death situations, yet I had survived. I had learned courage, patience, and trust, and I had been guided by creatures I had once feared. As night fell, back at our cabin, I reflected on everything that had happened. The forest had tested me, the mountains had challenged me, and the wolves had saved me. I was no longer the girl who had wandered off the trail for a patch of wildflowers. I was stronger, braver, and more aware of the world's extraordinary beauty and danger. And though the wolves were gone, I could still feel their presence in the mountains, watching silently, protective, and unforgettable. They had not only guided me back to safety, they had taught me lessons I would carry forever. Courage, trust, and the knowledge that sometimes help comes in the most unexpected forms. The moment I spotted them, my parents and Alex, running toward me across the valley, my heart leapt in a way I hadn't felt in days. The fear, exhaustion, and tension that had clung to me like a second skin all melted into a flood of relief. "Emma! Emma!" they shouted, their voices cutting through the forest and echoing across the misty mountains. I ran toward them, legs trembling, arms aching from days of climbing and struggling through the forest. I stumbled, nearly falling on the soft, damp earth, but they were there, pulling me upright. My mother wrapped me in a tight embrace, shaking as tears streamed down her face. "My baby, we thought we'd lost you," she cried. Alex jumped around me, nearly knocking me over with his excitement. "Emma, are you okay? Did anything happen? Tell me everything." My father examined me quickly, scanning every scrape, bruise, and mud-streaked spot on my clothes, but his relief was written plainly across his face. I, I'm okay," I said through sobs, my voice breaking. "But the wolves, they helped me. They guided me through the forest. They kept me safe." My parents exchanged incredulous looks. "Wolves?" my father asked. "Are you serious?" I nodded, my voice firm despite my tears. "Yes, the silver one, the leader. They didn't leave me. They guided me across rivers, cliffs, and through the forest. I wouldn't be here without them." I glanced back toward the edge of the forest, but the wolves were gone, vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared. Only the faint scent of pine lingered, a reminder of their presence. I whispered into the forest, "Thank you. I'll never forget you." We walked back to our cabin slowly, my body still aching, my mind racing with everything I had experienced. My parents fussed over me, checking me again and again, but I felt a strange calm inside. I realized that while I was physically exhausted, something deeper had changed. I was no longer the same girl who had wandered off a trail in search of wildflowers. That night, safe and warm, I sat wrapped in a blanket, reflecting on everything. I thought of the cliffs I had climbed, the rivers I had crossed, the storms I had survived. I thought of my fear, my despair, and the moments when I wanted to give up. And I thought of the wolves who had guided me with patience, intelligence, and silent protection. I realized then that this experience had taught me more than survival. It had taught me courage, not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. It had taught me trust, not just in people, but in the world, in unexpected helpers, in the wild itself. And it had taught me that strength comes in many forms: physical, mental, and emotional. In the days that followed, life returned slowly to normal. My parents and Alex were vigilant, still in awe that I had returned safely. I told them the story of the wolves, describing in detail their silver leader, the pack, and their protective behaviors. At first, they were skeptical, but the sincerity and emotion in my voice were undeniable. I had seen what I had seen, felt what I had felt, and I knew it had been real. Even now, years later, whenever I hike in the mountains, I feel the presence of those wolves, their eyes glowing in the shadows, their bodies moving silently through the forest, their wisdom and protection lingering in the air. They were more than animals. They were guides, guardians, and teachers. I had faced the wild, confronted fear, and survived. I had discovered courage I didn't know I possessed, learned the value of trust in unexpected places, and realized that life often sends help in forms we cannot predict. The mountains had tested me, the forest had challenged me, and the wolves had saved me. I was no longer the same girl who had wandered off a trail. I was stronger, braver, and more aware of the beauty and danger of the world around me. And sometimes, when the wind rustles the trees, when the forest feels alive, I swear I can see them, the silver wolf and its pack, watching, protective, and unforgettable. And I am forever grateful.